As Old Snake would say, war has changed. When you compare today's fighting games to the classics we love from the early 90s, they feel very primitive. Nowadays we're used to juggling all kinds of mechanics, but we didn't get to this point overnight. Throughout the years, many titles were responsible for introducing and popularizing a series of innovations that we now take for granted. So today we'll take a step back in time and remember some pivotal moments in fighting game history. To assist me on this journey through time, I team up with my friend Reaper Vegas, a fellow enthusiast of fighting games who also understands a thing or two about the genre's history. But let's not delay any longer. Here are a few innovations we believe are worth mentioning. Starting with Parrys. While it varies from game to game, in general, parry is a mechanic that gives players an alternative to blocking or dodging, offering higher rewards at the cost of taking a greater risk. To successfully parry an attack, you must put yourself in harm's way, in some games more than others, which means that landing a parry tends to be incredibly satisfying. When it comes to fighting games, SNK's Samurai Shodown 2, released in 1994, was the game that started it all. Waiting to block your opponent's attack as late as possible, just as they were about to hit you, would reward you with a window to launch a counterattack and turn the tables. Since then, parries have been a staple of many other fighting game franchises, each of them putting their own spin in the concept. From the different parries present in the Soul Calibur games, to Mortal Kombat's Flawless Block, or even one of my favorites, Garou Mark of the Wolf's Just Defense, which, by the way, is the only way to block while in the air, there is no shortage of variations. But if Samurai Shodown 2 was the first, the Street Fighter 3 series is arguably the one responsible for making it a sensation, in no small part due to the now legendary Evil Moment 37, when Daigo Umehara saved himself from death by expertly deflecting every single hit of Chun-Li's Hoyok-sen. It's no wonder this became one of the greatest, if not the greatest moment in competitive gaming, and if parries were already here before, they would certainly stay forever after that.
A mechanic with a storied history is the Taunt. Taunts are a pose that a character can do mid-match. Usually they have an out-of-the-way input so you don't do them by accident. Although in most games, taunts are just to add some style and flair to the game. Some taunts actually have a purpose. The first game to have a taunt button was Art of Fighting, released in 1992. With a press of the D button, any character can taunt their opponent. It does have a function, and that's to lower the enemy's spirit gauge. You do leave yourself open while you do it, so there's a risk and reward element to it. Another game that used taunts this way were the Eternal Champions games on Genesis and Sega CD. Although in Eternal Champions you also sacrifice some of your meter to do it. Third Strike, one of the most well-known competitive fighters of all time, also has incentives for taunting. Characters gain special effects after they taunt. Some get defense buffs, some get attack buffs, and some affect their stun gauge. Smash also has some applications with taunts. One of Luigi's taunts can spike if hit on the ledge, one of Greninja's causes small wind boxes to appear over him, and one of Kazuya's can gimp the opponent in rare circumstances. Finally, you can't talk about taunts without mentioning Dan Hibiki. In Street Fighter V, one of his V skills has him do a taunt that can be cancelled into a normal or special to set up frame traps. So the next time you see someone whip out a taunt in a fighting game, it's not just to make fun of you. Some games make it an integral mechanic, whereas others hide them for more obscure applications. They tend not to be the most viable options, but when performed can get people to pop off. They're crowd pleasers, which is why taunts are a mainstay of fighting games.
The next innovation I want to mention is the introduction of supers. In the very early days of fighting games, if you can even call them that, you were lucky if you had a couple of different punches and kicks to choose from. After that came special moves, specific attacks performed by a combination of inputs. The first time we saw this mechanic was perhaps in the original 1987 Street Fighter game, but those moves were very different in terms of ease of use and damage compared to what we have now. So in a way, I guess we could mention that as the mechanic, but it just sort of feels like the bare minimum to be called a fighting game. Instead, we will focus on the next step up the evolution ladder, super moves. Once again, it was 1992's Art of Fighting that introduced the concept. In addition to your health bar, Art of Fighting featured a spirit gauge that depletes whenever a character performs their special techniques. In itself, that was already a new system, since you couldn't simply spam projectiles across the screen, like in Street Fighter 2, but you also had access to a unique super move if your spirit gauge was full enough. While Art of Fighting had a specific charge animation for your spirit gauge, in many other franchises you fill your bar as you take damage and perform attacks. Whatever the system of choice, it's easy to see the lasting influence of super moves on modern fighting games. Nowadays, almost all of them will have this type of attack, even some franchises that didn't used to, like Tekken. Others, like the Marvel vs. series, are known for the ease with which you can acquire and use supers, to the point where performing combos without them is quite rare. There's even a unique case of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, where landing a super is the only way you can score points and win a match. Supers are without a doubt a concept that came to stay, and I would be surprised if it doesn't find its way into the few fighting game franchises that still don't make use of it.
Movement is paramount in the fighting game genre, and a mechanic that exemplifies that is the dash. Dashing is the act of quickly moving forward or backward to cover ground, or the air depending on the game. It is usually done by tapping forward or backward on the joystick twice. There is an element of risk to dashing, as you have to sacrifice the ability to block while dashing. The origin of the dash goes further back than one would expect. Vega had a backdash style move in Street Fighter II, but that's more of a dodge roll. The first fighting game that contains dashing to our knowledge was, once again, Art of Fighting. SNK truly were trailblazers when it came to game mechanics. It had a simple forward dash and backdash, although the game itself makes no mention of this mechanic. Every character can do it, even if half the cast look like they're power walking instead of dashing. Other fighting games would start integrating dashes into them like KOF 94 and 95, X-Men Children of the Atom, and Darkstalkers. These games would also pioneer another movement option, that being the air dash. Certain characters like Zabel, Storm, and Omega Red could dash in the air by jumping and using the aforementioned dash input. Air dashes would become synonymous with anime fighters, such as Guilty Gear, BlazBlue, and Dragon Ball fighters. Nowadays, the model for dashes is integrated into other mechanics. Street Fighter VI has the Drive Rush, which allows players to dash in far faster at the cost of some drive gauge. The upcoming Tekken 8 has something similar with Heat Dash, which often follows after performing a Heat Engager. These systems take a very standard mechanic and give an interesting flavor that will certainly make the future of fighting games more interesting. The concept of combos in fighting games can be traced back to the early days of arcade gaming in the late 70s and early 80s. While combos were not explicitly programmed into these early games, skilled players quickly discovered that they could perform sequences of moves that, when executed in quick succession, could lead to higher scores and more damage to opponents. These sequences of moves laid the groundwork for what we now know as combos. The first game to introduce combos as a deliberate and recognized gameplay mechanic was Street Fighter II. Street Fighter II allowed players to string together a series of attacks to create powerful and stylish combinations, which added a layer of depth and strategy to the game. This was not only an efficient strategy to deplete the opponent's health bar, but also a way to showcase skill. Executing complex and precise combos requires both timing and execution, providing a sense of achievement. Since Street Fighter II introduced combos to the gaming world, this innovative gameplay mechanic has been embraced, adapted, and customized in countless fighting games. Each title has added its unique twist to the concept, contributing to the rich tapestry of the genre. For instance, Tekken introduced intricate juggling combos that allowed for mid-air attacks, while Marvel vs. Capcom took things to another level with its tag team combos, letting players switch characters mid-combo. Additionally, games like Killer Instinct introduced combo breakers, allowing opponents to counter their adversaries' combos with well-timed moves. These adaptations showcase the versatility of the combo mechanic, transforming it into a unique signature for each fighting game, enriching the genre and keeping it constantly evolving. In the competitive world of fighting games, combos have become central to tournament play. Professional players develop strategies around combo setups, making the gameplay more thrilling for both participants and spectators. And let's not forget the aesthetic appeal. Combos can be visually impressive, often serving as a form of in-game art. Stylish and flashy combos have become a signature feature of many fighting games, some of which have been built almost entirely based on this concept. The introduction of combos in Street Fighter II set the stage for their proliferation in the fighting game genre. They've become a symbol of skill, strategy, and innovation, and they've enriched the genre in countless ways. It's no wonder why they've remained a vital part of the fighting game experience, capturing the hearts of players and spectators alike.
And finally, online play. The world of fighting games has undergone a remarkable transformation with the advent of online play. What was once a solitary battle against AI or a local match against a friend has expanded into a global arena where players can engage in fierce competition regardless of physical distance. The journey of online play fighting games began with the efforts of a small company called Catapult Entertainment, the creators of X-Band, an unofficial gaming network that allowed players to face each other across the internet. The X-Band, which was released in 1994, was available for the Genesis and Super Nintendo and supported a small variety of titles. Very few of them, however, were created with the modem in mind, with Weapon Lord being the most notorious case, even displaying the X-Band logo on its box. These early attempts, however, were plagued by technical limitations. Online connectivity simply wasn't robust enough to support smooth, responsive matches, so players often grappled with lag and latency issues that hindered experience. However, as the internet evolved, so did online play. Developers began integrating basic online modes, allowing players to test their skills against opponents from around the world. These initial steps paved the way for a more interconnected fighting game community. Yet, the true game changer arrived with the refinement of rollback netcode. This innovation, popularized by games like Schoolgirls and Guilty Gear Strive, mitigated the latency issues that had plagued online play. Rollback netcode predicted the player's actions based on real-time data, resulting in smoother, more fluid matches. This development bridged the gap between online and offline play, fostering a sense of competitiveness akin to local matches. Cross-platform play further broke down barriers in the fighting game community. Players on different consoles or PCs could finally engage in battles without worrying about hardware limitations. This expansion of the player pool injected new life into the community, creating a more diverse and challenging environment. Online tournaments emerged as a significant development, offering a platform for players of all levels to participate in competitive events. Especially in times when in-person gatherings faced challenges, online tournaments flourished. Players could showcase their skills on an international stage, and the excitement of these virtual showdowns resonated with the global community. Despite these advancements, challenges remain. Connection issues can still disrupt matches, and technical hurdles persist. However, the trajectory of online play in fighting games is clear. It's here to stay. Developers and players alike continue to adapt and innovate, striving to create an online experience that mirrors the intensity and camaraderie of local play. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what we have for you today. Big thanks to Reaper Vegas for helping me out with this project. He's a fellow fighting game content creator who is constantly challenging himself to beat all kinds of games, often with wacky rules or in the hardest difficulty. There will be a link to his channel in the description of this video. Also, while I have your attention, I want to let you guys know that my card game, Arcade Champion, is available through the Game Crafter. This is a physical tabletop game that simulates the thrill of the classic arcade fighting games by having players collect different inputs to perform their attacks. Check it out if it's in your budget. I believe you won't regret it. I'll leave a link for the online store in the description of this video and in a pinned comment down below. And speaking of comments, if you guys want to point out other important innovations in the fighting game genre, let us know your favorites in the comment section, and maybe one of us will look into it in the future. For now, this has been a Dukemi Player, and I'll see you guys later.